the more I think about this new fighter-trainer pairing between Andy Ruiz and Eddy Reynoso, the more I think it makes sense. Just from a stylistic point of view, not just the fact that, everybody's Mexican and what have you, and hopefully Canelo will rub off on Andy Ruiz Jr. in terms of his work ethic and discipline and professionalism. But stylistically, Andy Ruiz Jr. is an episodic fighter, as Dwyer likes to say. He's not a volume puncher. So he's a pressure fighter, yes, but he's not one of those pressure fighters that just lets his hands go constantly, Joe Frazier style. No, he's a guy who likes to throw in combination, but, the combinations are intermittent throughout the course of a round. So he doesn't like to waste shots. He doesn't like to throw just for the sake of throwing. He likes to throw when he's in position, when he sees a clear opening, or, when he's worked for it with his jab and, okay, now's the opportunity. I'm going to let the hands go. And that really is similar to what Canelo does. Now, Canelo's a lot more versatile than Andy Ruiz. He's got much better punch quality than Andy Ruiz. And I'll come on to that in a second. But Canelo also is an episodic fighter. He's not a guy that just throws punches constantly. Canelo's whole ethos is quality over quantity. Whether he's fighting on the back foot, whether he's in the middle of the ring boxing, or whether he's pressure fighting, he likes quality over quantity. And that's one of the things I've always liked about Canelo Alvarez. He counters with combinations. Again, Andy Ruiz does that too. So you can see some correlation here. He likes to counter with combinations rather than single shots most of the time. But Canelo's punch quality is something I've always loved. He lands so clean. The knuckle part of the glove, whether he's throwing body shots or head shots, and he's got great punch variety with uppercuts, hooks, straight punches, jabs. I mean, tremendous quality from Canelo. And he has developed all that under Eddy Reynoso. So this is one of the unsung trainers in boxing, as far as I'm concerned. He doesn't get enough credit, or he doesn't get the credit that is due based upon what his charge Canelo has actually achieved over the years. So I think that Andy Ruiz working with Eddy Reynoso, as I've already mentioned, in terms of Canelo rubbing off on him by way of just influencing him to be more professional. But even the punch quality, because if there's a few issues with Andy Ruiz, of course. One of the issues is that he does tend to slap with some of his punches, and he does tend to throw wide a lot of the time when he's throwing his hooks. He's got very fast hands, but his hooks are not always short and tight and compact. Sometimes they're wide, flailing hooks. And working with Eddy Reynoso, he is surely going to get Andy Ruiz to throw more tight, compact shots, get him to turn his shots over better. And look, Andy Ruiz does turn a lot of his punches over. Don't get it twisted. Certainly the shot that he hurt AJ with and eventually dropped him with in that third round of their first fight, that was plenty short and it landed very clean on the knuckles, etc. But again, if you've been watching Andy Ruiz for a long time and looking at a lot of his fights, he does throw wide shots. Sometimes they're a little slapping and stuff like that. Eddy Reynoso is going to be working on all that and just neatening up Andy Ruiz's game. As I say, for a fighter who fights in bursts like Ruiz, I think he's got the perfect trainer to be able to work with that tendency and that fight style and maximize it, make the most out of it. So I think it's going to, look, proof is in the pudding at the end of the day. We have to see what the results are like under Eddy Reynoso. But in my mind, in theory, when I think more and more about Andy Ruiz's style and the fact that he's in good company and, they're all Mexicans, are all familiar with each other and what have you culturally. But more the style thing, the more I think about it and analyze it, it just seems like a good idea that he went with Eddy Reynoso. So let me know what you guys think. I can't wait to see Andy Ruiz back in the ring. I like watching him fight. He's got tremendously fast hands, and that's something particularly at heavyweight, which is always exciting. Somebody that can let his hands go really fast with power shots. It introduces an element of danger when someone is that explosive and fast with their hands at heavyweight. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about Andy Ruiz and Reynoso. And I have seen a few clips of them training, and to me, Reynoso seems to be very much drilling Andy Ruiz on the technical aspects of what he's doing, the way he's throwing his shots, his positioning, because a lot of the time when you see trainers with a fighter, they're just taking them on the pads and they're getting them to throw loads of shots, either really fast or really hard. And that's not really teaching the fighter much. Yes, it's muscle memory and all that kind of stuff, but you want to see something a bit deeper, something a bit more technical than that, especially when you have a fighter that has issues that need to be addressed. And then another issue, of course, and this comes down to the professionalism, is if they can get Andy Ruiz's weight down, they'll be able to get him to move his upper body more. And that's another thing that I'm sure Eddy Reynoso wants to work on with Andy Ruiz, because Andy Ruiz doesn't have good head movement. I remember having this big argument with people going into the second AJ fight where they said, oh, Ruiz has got really good head movement. No, he doesn't. Ruiz has never had good head movement. He's never had good. He's always been a bit of a sitting duck and he stands up very straight. But again, it's because he has so much weight around his waist. He can't really bend at the waist with all that weight in the way. If they can get a lot of that weight off and introduce, more upper body movement, then that's a new dimension to his game. And maybe Andy Ruiz can come back better in this next phase of his career. So let's see what happens. Let me know what you guys think.